The iPhone 15 Pro Max. When it comes to iPhones, I am a Pro Max guy, but this year it's a bit of a head scratcher. And I am kind of leaning towards the Pro, maybe even a 14 Pro Max actually.
Why?
Well, all of the new upgrades feel like marginal facelifts, and some of them kind of feel like they maybe worsen the experience. Alright, let's start talking with the exterior. We now have this titanium frame, kind of, sort of. It's about a millimeter thick titanium shell fused to an aluminum interior. But fine, it gives the iPhone this new pristine finish that's less of a finger grease collector than the stainless steel of the past. Unfortunately, the titanium doesn't hold color very well, as many online have already found that the blue and the black versions of the new iPhone scratch easily. Maybe there's a reason why Apple didn't paint the Watch Ultra, even the second generation. And the new super thin bezels are very welcome. Overall, the iPhone 15 Pro Max is slightly smaller than the iPhone 14 Pro Max and lighter thanks to the titanium shell. Then there's this thing, the new action button, which replaces the legendary mute switch. You have a very pretty menu which lets you choose what the action button does. It can function either as a mute toggle like before, or you can launch your camera, or you can set it up to launch absolutely any Siri shortcut. But it can only do one thing at a time. You set up a press and hold, and as you hold it, the thing that's supposed to happen happens. It would have been so much more awesome if you could set up gestures for it, like one click to mute, 2 clicks for camera, or hold down for Siri shortcut or something. Some might argue that the simplicity of one button does one thing is a very Apple thing to do. But what's infuriating is that Apple kind of has all of these features baked into iOS already. Look at that, I can set up a triple click on the power button to reduce brightness, activate the magnifier, or start any of these many accessibility functions, some of which can be bound to the action button currently. And remember this, you can set up a back tap gesture. For example, you can tap the back of the iPhone twice and launch the camera. And this is on older iPhones too. So now you can have a shortcut with a back tap, you can have a shortcut with a triple power tap, you can have a shortcut with the action button. Now that's a redundancy, and that's the most un-Apple thing to have actually. My guess is that the action button is here in a very simple form right now until we get used to it. And then with iOS 18, maybe even iOS 19, Apple will start adding more functions for it, so we don't get overwhelmed too early on. For the time being, the action button feels like a very fancy replacement for a mechanical switch, which we loved to fidget with. Until we break it! Then we have the new camera system. Okay, it's no surprise that the new iPhones have the best camera on an iPhone, new image processing, and the results are again awesome. Especially for video, and even more especially for action stabilization. But here's what I don't get. So Apple says, hey, it's time to upgrade the zoom on our iPhones. And the iPhone 15 Pro Max, only the Pro Max, gets a 5x zoom tetraprism lens. So it provides 5x optical zoom and enhances the maximum zoom of the iPhone to 25 times? That's like a quarter of the Galaxy S23 Ultra's maximum. Anyhow, I am kind of perplexed by the choice of a 5x optical zoom, so that's the equivalent of a 120mm focal length. It's hardly useful for most portrait scenarios unless you really want to isolate your subject. And as a magnification step, 5x is not that much of a zoom. I can imagine that maybe it gives you an interesting option for framing specifically when you're filming an artsy video, but it's a very weird choice for photos. And for example, again, Samsung's Galaxy S23 Ultra has one lens that gives you 3x zoom and one lens that gives you 10x optical zoom. So you're covered for portraits and then you're covered for a longer range zoom. And to be fair here, I'm not drawing comparison to just draw the line and say S23 Ultra is better. That's not the video for that right now. I'm merely trying to make the point that the iPhone 15 Pro Max tetraprism lens sounds very fancy, but it doesn't feel like it'll get much use. The iPhone 15 Pro Max can still take portrait photos at 1x, 2x, 3x zoom by using a crop from its main sensor, and to be fair, the quality seems fine. It's ever so slightly softer than if you're taking a portrait with an actual zoom lens, but if we don't pixel peep, they're okay. And the portrait pictures with the iPhones this year look amazing. Apple has definitely spent a good amount of time fine-tuning edge detection and very specifically the amount of quality of fake blur applied to the photos. These look very convincing. But for me, I am perfectly happy with using an iPhone 15 Pro with a regular 3x zoom lens and enjoying sharp portraits, instead of having a heavier tetraprism lens that would barely get as much use. But again, when it comes to recording videos, the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max are absolutely stunning. Especially since you can now record 4K ProRes video and quickly transfer it to an external drive with the new USB-C port. And lastly, I want to talk about the new hardware performance. The new Apple A17 Pro processor sounded amazing when introduced on stage, with the same over-the-top performance upgrades that we get every year and hardware accelerated ray tracing. And Apple was quick to announce that we will get actual console titles on the iPhone Pros. No, not Raid Shadow Legends, but Assassin's Creed Mirage, Resident Evil Village, plus the upcoming Resident Evil 4 remake. If you were wondering exactly how powerful the A17 Pro in the 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max is, if you look at the App Store pages for those games, you will see that they are only compatible with iPads with the M1 chip and above. So it's fair to treat the A17 Pro like it's an M1 with ray tracing. That's awesome, but we have to wonder, was Apple in a bit of a hurry to introduce these powerful chips? Within the first weeks of release, we had reports of overheating when doing the simplest tasks on the Pro iPhones. The latest iOS 17.0.3 seems to have fixed this for most people. The A17 Pro is a new class of chip, and it seems that Apple is taking a fair swing at the portable gamer platform. Maybe somebody out there at Apple is dreaming up the iPhone Pro as a competitor to the Steam Deck? That would be awesome. I'm just spitballing here. Maybe your most expensive, most popular product is not the right platform for experiments though. Longtime fans that are buying the iPhone 15 aren't doing so because they want to experience first generation woes. And maybe it's not fair to say that it's first gen pains because the processor was running a bit hot and it's now mostly fixed. But the latest screen burn-in reports specifically for the iPhone 15 Pro Max also make me wince and just look towards the iPhone 15 Pro instead. Granted, Apple makes millions and millions and millions of iPhones, and there will always be a percentage of units that are a bit faulty. That's inevitable. And all reports state that Apple is pretty quick in replacing units with the burn-in issue, which is top-notch, great. But the fact that it only seems to be affecting the Pro Max units, and there seems to be a slightly bigger amount of complaints than usual, makes me believe that something went wrong with the QC there. Anyway, who am I to speak? I'm currently using an iPhone 12 mini and I'm happy as a cucumber. If I were to upgrade this year, I would either go for a 15 Pro or 14 Pro Max. How about you? Let me know in the comments below. I've been Press, PhoneArena, bye!